My phone vibrated once inside my blazer pocket, a bank deposit alert popping up without fanfare. I unlocked the screen slowly, staring at the plain number printed clean on the transaction line. 30,000 RMB, point 30,000. Every single member of my team had walked away with a 200,000 renminbi year-end payout, while I, the person who'd single-handedly locked in over 80% of the firm's total annual revenue, was handed a fraction of what they'd earned. No rage bubbled up inside me, no sharp spike of hurt. The cold indifference settling heavy in my chest felt like sinking to the bottom of a frozen lake, every last ounce of loyalty I'd held for this company solidifying into ice. Liwan sauntered past my workstation minutes later, her brand new Chanel dress rustling, a bright orange Hermes Birkin bag swinging from her wrist, each click of her stiletto heels deliberate and loud, crafted to broadcast her windfall for everyone to witness. She slowed to a halt right beside my desk, tilting her head in fake concern, her eyes glinting with undisguised malice as they zeroed in on my half-empty cold coffee mug. "Wow, Linwei, aren't you heading out to celebrate your championship win with the rest of us?" She lifted the luxury handbag up for full display, running a polished finger along its leather trim. This limited edition bag was such a hassle to track down, but my bonus covered it completely. I couldn't pass it up. Her tone was coated in sugary politeness, yet every syllable carried a sharp, poisonous jab designed to chip away at my composure. I lifted my gaze, glancing past her overpriced accessory to her stretched, greedy grin, and a faint, hollow smile tugged at my jaw. The whole spectacle struck me as utterly ridiculous. "It suits you well." Liwan's grin faltered instantly. She'd clearly anticipated a dramatic breakdown, bitter arguments, or at minimum a strained, miserable smile from me. Instead, I offered zero reaction, no outburst, no crack in my calm exterior. She huffed quietly and wandered off to gossip with the other sales staff, her petty victory falling flat before it even landed. Wang Kuan, our CEO, trundled over next, a wine glass clutched in his meaty palm. His heavy hand crashed hard onto my shoulder, the pressure sharp, a patronizing gesture meant to signal he'd bestowed some great favor upon me. His voice was slick and oily, like a rag soaked through with cheap cooking grease. "Linwei, you've carried this department all year long, I know that. I realize the bonus payout might leave you a little disappointed, but you need to look at the bigger picture and prioritize the company's stability." He waved his glass vaguely toward the office walls, reciting the same hollow line every boss trots out to shortchange their top performers. "Young people shouldn't fixate on petty cash. The platform this business built for you is far more valuable than any one-time bonus check." Each word he spoke dragged lightly across my already numb nerves, not painful, just disgustingly grating. A notification pinged the department group chat seconds later. Wang Kuan dropped a 2,000 renminbi red envelope for all staff, his accompanying message front and center for everyone to read. "Thank you to our entire sales team for your hard work this year. Special shout out to Linwei for being so reasonable and mature. She's a role model for every employee here." Reasonable and mature. Those two phrases clung to my identity like moldy tape. Reeking of manufactured guilt-tripping, I tapped the red envelope without hesitation, collecting my measly 52 renminbi share, then typed a generic thank you into the chat box before locking my phone screen. I navigated to Wang Kuan and Liwan's social media profiles, toggling my posts to a 3-day visibility limit, and the endless noise of their performative grandstanding faded away at last. I returned to my cramped, 40-square-meter rental apartment that night without flipping on a single light. Neon city light filtered through the window, casting fragmented, broken streaks across the linoleum floor like a shattered abstract painting. I didn't shed a tear, didn't wallow in sorrow. That humiliating 30,000 payout had acted like a powerful sedative, killing the last shred of belonging I'd ever felt toward Wang Kuan's company. I reached onto the highest shelf of my bookcase and pulled out a thick black leather notebook. Personal property, not a single page supplied by the firm. I flipped open the cover, scanning the meticulously detailed pages inside. Page 1 held full records for client A, full legal name, age, corporate title, private cell number, residential address, his wife's birthday, his son's boarding school, even the name of their golden retriever. I kept scrolling, moving through client B, client C, every major high-value account I'd spent years nurturing. Every detail written down was far more intimate and thorough than the sparse, lifeless entries stored in the company's official CRM database. These weren't just clients to me. They were connections forged through hundreds of late nights, dozens of rejected pitches, and genuine care that extended far beyond business transactions. Wang Kuan thought he could claim all my hard work as his own, hiding behind the word platform, to justify stealing my well-deserved compensation. He'd underestimated exactly how deep these personal bonds ran. I unlocked my phone and pulled up Client A's assistant WeChat account, typing out a gentle, unhurried message with zero mention of sales contracts or project timelines. "Happy New Year. Did I recall Mr. A mentioned his son's overseas university applications recently, so I compiled a full guide covering interview prep and document submission requirements. I've attached the file for you to pass along. Hope it eases some of their stress." I sent over the comprehensive document I'd prepped weeks prior, anticipating exactly this moment. Within minutes, the assistant shot back a grateful reply. Lynn, you're far too thoughtful. Mr. A's been pulling his hair out over this application process. I'll forward this to him right away. Thank you endlessly. A quiet, cold smile spread across my face as I cycled through the rest of my core client contacts. I sent Client B's wife a link to the floral art exhibition she'd rambled about wanting to attend months ago. I shared a research article on migraine relief therapy with Client C's personal number, recalling his constant struggles with chronic headaches. Every message focused solely on personal life, shared interests, genuine concern, no sales pitches, no demands for new contracts. This was the care I'd poured into every client relationship for years. Now, this would be the final thread tying our trust together before I cut ties with Wang Kuen's firm entirely. Once every message was sent, I stood at the window, staring out at the endless stream of cars rushing along the city road below. Every stranger down there was grinding away to secure their own livelihoods, and it was time I stopped sacrificing mine for a boss who saw my labor as disposable. My phone lit up minutes later with a direct message from Client A himself, not his assistant. Xiaolin, I've read through the materials you sent over. This is incredibly helpful. You care more about my son's future than I do some days. We absolutely need to grab dinner together soon. I typed a polite, reserved reply. You're far too kind, Mr. A. I stared out at the endless dark sky, all warmth drained from my expression, replaced by a quiet, icy resolve. Revenge didn't require screaming matches or dramatic outbursts. Sometimes, all it took was slowly, silently removing every piece of value a greedy employer thought they owned. I navigated to my phone's app settings, uninstalling every corporate work platform one by one, DingTalk, corporate WeChat, internal project management software. As storage space freed up on my device, the suffocating weight clinging to my chest lifted just a fraction. The first phase of my plan was officially underway, and I wouldn't rush a single step. The first business day post-holiday arrived, the office still buzzing with leftover vacation chatter. Li Wan and her clique chattered loudly about their luxury trips, scuba diving in the Maldives, hot spring getaways in Japan, constantly referencing their 200,000 renminbi bonuses just loud enough for my desk to catch every word. I slipped on noise-canceling headphones, blocking out their shallow bragging entirely, and booted up my work laptop to sort client files as usual. There's a stark difference to my workflow now, though. Every client document I processed contained only surface-level copy-pasted information. No added personal notes, no follow-up reminders, no extra research to streamline future pitches. This hollow, half-hearted labor matched the 30,000 RMB bonus Wang Kuen had deemed worthy of my output. At 10 a.m. sharp, Wang Kuen called the full sales department into the conference room for his annual kickoff speech. He paced the front of the space, spittle flying as he rambled on about grand corporate growth targets, drawing out empty pie-in-the-sky promises that every single member of the team had heard a dozen years running. He suddenly cut off mid-sentence, singling me out by name, every head in the room snapping to face my chair. Lin Wei, our sales champion, this year, your top priority is locking in Client A's $3 million quarterly contract. Are you fully committed to hitting this mark? He shouted the question like a drill sergeant inspecting troops, demanding an enthusiastic, impassioned response. I stood upright, my features completely neutral, no hint of excitement or frustration in my voice. Just one short, emotionless word. Yes. Wang Kuen's jaw tightened with quiet irritation at my lack of performative zeal, but he had no grounds to reprimand me for complying with his order, so he waved a hand to signal I could sit back down. The meeting wrapped soon after, and Li Wan and her friends huddled in the break room to whisper insults within earshot. Look at her lifeless face, acting like she's untouchable even after the boss cut her bonus down to nothing. Exactly. She can grind all she wants, but she's still stuck with a payout smaller than one of my designer bags. Wang Kuen's delusional if he thinks she's capable of landing Client A's massive deal this quarter. I stepped into the break room with my empty ceramic mug mid-rant, and the group instantly fell silent, scattering to separate cubicles like startled rodents. Only Zhang Hao, the quiet male sales associate seated across from my workstation, shot me a quick, sympathetic glance. I gave him a nearly imperceptible nod of acknowledgement, the only small gesture of connection I'd offered anyone in the office in weeks. Back at my desk, I pulled open my drawer and began packing my personal belongings one by one, moving at a slow, unhurried pace. There was the asparagus fern I'd nurtured for 3 years, its leaves bright green and thriving, a custom ceramic mug printed with my favorite designer's portrait, stacks of industry textbooks covered in handwritten analysis notes. I set each item gently into a cardboard moving box. No rush, no obvious distress. Zhang Hao watched my movements for several minutes before leaning over. His voice dropped to a hushed whisper to avoid drawing attention. Lin Wei, are you planning to resign? I glanced up at him, offering the first genuine, soft smile I'd managed since bonus day. Just clearing out clutter, too many personal items crowding my desk. My tone was light, but Zhang Hao's expression shifted to quiet understanding. He didn't press further, only watched me with a heavier, more complicated gaze. That afternoon, Wang Kun summoned Li Wan into his private office, leaving the door slightly ajar. I could hear his deliberately lowered, yet still persuasive tone drifting across the open floor plan. This new prospective client has incredible growth potential. Handle their account properly, and your commission will dwarf last year's bonus entirely. This was his go-to manipulation tactic. Dangle vague and proven future rewards to motivate one employee, then pit them against another to keep everyone compliant and underpaid. He truly believed every person on his staff craved scraps of his fake generosity, the way Li Wan did. My phone vibrated lightly on the desktop minutes later, an unfamiliar number popping up on the screen that I recognized instantly as Client A's assistant's private cell line. I slipped out to the stairwell to take the call, stepping away from prying ears. Lynn, sorry to bother you during work hours. The assistant's tone was gentle, cautious, filled with genuine concern. No trouble at all. What's going on? I just wanted to check in and ask how your current role at the firm is treating you. Mr. A asked me to reach out and send his regards. A faint flicker of warmth stirred deep in my chest at the quiet care behind the question, a stark contrast to the disregard I received from my employer. I'm doing fine. Please pass along my thanks to Mr. A for thinking of me. Of course. He also told me to let you know, if work ever stops feeling fulfilling here, you can reach out to him anytime for help. I'll keep that in mind. Thank you. I hung up the call, staring out at the gray, overcast sky through the stairwell window. The storm I'd been quietly building was only days away from breaking, and Wang Kun remained completely oblivious to the avalanche headed straight for his business. The calendar ticked closer and closer to Client A's scheduled contract signing date, and the office atmosphere curdled into thick, tangible tension. Wang Kun's constant easy grin vanished entirely, replaced by unmasked anxiety. He circled my workstation 8 separate times each day, lingering beside my desk with half-formed accusations he bit back before speaking aloud. 3 days before the plan signing, he finally lost his patience, marching straight over to my cubicle to confront me outright. Lin Wei, what's the status on Client A's paperwork? Why hasn't the contract been finalized yet? His voice sharpened with unfiltered suspicion. I lifted my eyes from a pile of meaningless internal spreadsheets, my tone flat and unchanging, reciting the prepared neutral line I'd rehearsed weeks prior. I've maintained consistent follow-ups with their team. Their assistant mentioned Mr. A's schedule is fully booked this month, so we're waiting for an available time slot. The explanation was airtight. No room for him to poke holes or claim negligence on my part. Booked, he can't brush off a $3 million project over a busy calendar. Wang Kun raised his voice loud enough for half the sales floor to overhear, clearly refusing to accept my answer. He snatched the landline phone off my desk and dialed Client A's corporate office himself, instantly switching to a cloying, sycophantic tone the second the line connected. Hi there, this is Wang Kun from... The assistant cut him off mid-sentence without hesitation. My apologies, Mr. Wang. Mr. A is locked in a board meeting at the moment. Please call back later. A sharp-dialed tone echoed through the handset before he could utter another word. Wang Kun froze, holding the receiver midair, his face cycling through a spectrum of rage, pale shock, burning crimson, then deep stormy blue-gray. He slammed the phone back into its cradle so hard the entire desk rattled, his chest heaving with unbridled fury. Every employee in the room flinched at the crash, falling dead silent, too scared to make a sound. He locked eyes with me, his glare sharp enough to slice through paper. Yet he couldn't unleash a full tirade, not while Client A's account was still technically assigned under my name, the single largest revenue stream keeping his company afloat. Keep following up immediately. He ground the words out between clenched teeth, spinning on his heel and slamming his office door hard enough to shake the wall panels. Li Wan's face twisted with undisguised glee, leaning over to whisper to a nearby coworker at a volume I could clearly catch. I told everyone her perfect sales streak would crash and burn. She thinks she's irreplaceable, but watch how fast this big deal slips away. I didn't bother lifting my head to acknowledge her petty taunts. Their meaningless gossip no longer held any power to upset me. My phone lit up with a direct WeChat message from Client A moments later, no assistant relaying the note this time. Shaolin, are you still employed at that firm? It's clear boss doesn't value the talent on his team. That single message stripped away every layer of Wang Kun's hollow, platform-first rhetoric with surgical precision. I typed out a calm, definitive response, every character saturated with quiet resolve. I appreciate your concern, Mr. A. I'm currently exploring new long-term career opportunities. I hit send, and his reply appeared within a single second, no delay whatsoever. Wonderful news. Reach out whenever you need support. Talent like yours will always be in high demand, no matter which company you join. Reading those words dissolved the heavy resentment weighing on my shoulders for half a year. This wasn't petty retaliation. It was simply reclaiming the respect my labor deserved, respect Wang Kun had refused to grant me. The next morning, a bright red alert popped up across the company's sales backend system, visible to every logged-in staff member. Client name, a group. Contract value, 3 million renminbi. Contract status, terminated. The first domino had fallen, pushed over by my own hand. News of Client A's canceled contract detonated through the sales department like a pipe bomb, drowning the office in an awkward, suffocating silence. No one dared speak above a murmur, only the rapid tap of keyboard keys and mouse clicks cutting through the heavy quiet. Wang Kun barricaded himself inside his private office for the entire morning, refusing to take any calls or meet with staff. He stormed out for the afternoon department meeting, slamming a stack of quarterly sales reports flat against the conference table, sending loose sheets scattering across the floor. It's been a full month. Has anyone on this team closed a single viable contract? His voice cracked with unrestrained anger, hoarse from hours of frustrated yelling behind closed doors. Some of you are writing past achievements without putting in the work the company requires. We don't carry dead weight here. He never called my name outright, but every hostile glare swept directly toward my seat, the unspoken accusation hanging thick in the air. Li Wan and her friends didn't bother hiding their malicious stares, framing me as the sole source of the firm's sudden revenue collapse. I sat motionless in my chair, twisting a ballpoint pen between my fingers, observing the spectacle as if it unfolded for a stranger's benefit. Once his rant wound down, Wang Kun shifted his rage to the next high-value account on the roster. Client B's contract must be secured this quarter, no exceptions. His gaze locked onto me again, delivering an unyielding, public command meant to humiliate me in front of the whole team. Lin Wei, you've managed this client relationship longer than anyone else. You will guarantee this deal closes, or face the consequences. This was open pressure, deliberate public degradation designed to break my composure. I lifted my chin, meeting his furious stare with unshaken neutrality, and agreed without argument. Understood, Mr. Wang. I accepted the impossible task without pushback, knowing exactly what would unfold in the weeks ahead. The same pattern repeated with Client B that followed Client A's departure. Every corporate phone line went unanswered. Formal emails sat unread. All official company outreach vanished into thin air. Li Wan seized the opportunity to rush straight to Wang Kun's office to file a formal complaint against me, her words dripping with fabricated accusations. Mr. Wang, I'm certain Lin Wei sabotaged our client relationships behind closed doors. There's no logical reason both A and B would cut all contact overnight unless she's acted against the company's interests. Rumors spread rapidly across the office floor after that conversation, twisting my reputation beyond recognition. I transitioned from admired top sales champion to a suspected traitor, a selfish employee accused of betraying the business that gave me a chance. Wang Kun's suspicion curdled into paranoia, and he summoned me to his locked office for a private confrontation days later. Lin Wei, tell me the truth. What exactly did you say or do to drive our major clients away? His tone turned dark, edged with quiet threats of disciplinary action. I haven't taken any actions against company interests, Mr. Wang. My expression stayed steady, completely free of guilt. Market competition grows fiercer every quarter. Rival firms regularly offer pricing and service terms we cannot match. Shifting client priorities are standard commercial variables. Every line I spoke was factually sound, leaving him zero tangible evidence to discipline or fire me. He stared into my eyes for minutes on end, hunting for a flicker of nervousness or guilt to exploit, but left empty-handed, forced to wave me back to my workstation in frustrated defeat. The firm hadn't landed a single large contract in over 30 days, a thick cloud of panic settling over every staff member. Meanwhile, I stuck rigidly to my scheduled hours, clocking out earlier than I had in years, no after-hours overtime, no voluntary follow-up calls after closing. Zhang Hao watched me repeatedly, noticing I spent most of my downtime reading textbooks on AI sales analytics and customer data modeling rather than sorting client pipelines. Confusion lingered plainly on his face. He couldn't wrap his mind around how the person at the center of the company's catastrophic revenue slump remained far calmer than anyone else on staff. He failed to realize the storm swallowing the business was one I'd carefully orchestrated, and I'd long positioned myself safely outside its destructive eye. The final day of the fiscal quarter arrived, and the quarterly financial report circulated to every department manager, the numbers printed in stark black ink, a brutal portrait of collapse. The sales floor sank into complete despair. The same coworkers who'd flaunted their 200,000 renminbi bonuses months prior now slouched at their desks, hollow-faced and anxious, terrified of suspended commissions and delayed base salaries. Panic spread through the office like an infectious disease. Wang Kun finally abandoned his office seclusion, pushing the door open a crack and scanning the open workspace until his eyes landed on me. Lin Wei, come into my office immediately. His voice carried an unfamiliar weight of exhaustion I'd never heard from him before. I stepped inside his private office, and he personally poured a cup of premium Longjing tea, sliding it across the polished desk toward me with a strained, fake smile uglier than his angry snarls. Sit, please. His overly amicable demeanor sent a sharp shiver of revulsion down my spine. I've reflected deeply on the year-end bonus incident. I failed to consider your hard work fully, and you've endured unfair treatment at my hands. He pulled a thin red envelope from his desk drawer, sliding it forward across the table, the paper so light I could instantly gauge the minimal cash inside. This is a supplementary payout of 20,000 renminbi as compensation for the earlier mistake. He held my gaze, forcing a tone of manufactured sincerity. If you can reestablish contact with either Client A or Client B and recover their contracts, I'll immediately promote you to Deputy Sales Director. This position is yours without delay. Another empty pie chart, coated in a thin layer of cheap sugar to mask its hollow core. I glanced at the flimsy red envelope and let out a quiet, unamused laugh, the soft sound piercing straight through his manufactured friendly facade, exposing all his calculated hypocrisy in an instant. This marked the first time I'd openly displayed unmasked disdain for him to his face. I pushed the envelope back across the desk without touching it. I'm not able to accept this money, Mr. Wang. I lack the capacity to deliver the results you're requesting. My voice remained calm, every syllable crystal clear. Nor can I recover those terminated client agreements. Wang Kuen's plastic smile froze solid on his face. He'd prepared countless scenarios for this conversation, me begging for a higher payout, negotiating extra benefits, tearfully accepting his olive branch. He never anticipated a blunt, unhesitating refusal. Shock washed over his features for 3 full seconds before boiling rage replaced it, twisting his face into a vicious, furious mask. He slammed his palm hard against the wooden desktop, launching his body upward from his leather office chair. Lin Wei, don't spit on my goodwill. His voice shook with unbridled fury, flecks of spittle flying toward my side of the table. Do you truly believe this company can't operate without you? You're nothing without this platform I built. I watched him silently, observing the grown man reduced to screaming tantrums to hide his own professional failures, every threat and angry outburst bouncing harmlessly off my unshaken resolve. I stood upright without adding another word, turned, gripped the office door handle, and stepped back out onto the sales floor. Behind me, Wang Kuen's enraged roar echoed through the glass walls, followed by the crash of a ceramic mug shattering against his filing cabinet. A profound, weightless sense of relief washed over me as I walked away. The passive waiting phase of my plan had concluded. Active countermeasures were now fully in motion. Wang Kuen's retaliatory strike arrived faster than I anticipated, landing at the next mandatory full department meeting the following morning. He stood at the front of the conference room, his tone cold and unforgiving as he announced my formal disciplinary punishment for all staff to witness. Due to Lin Wei's consistent underperformance and declining client management results, effective immediately, all core high-value accounts currently assigned to her will be fully transferred to Li Wan's oversight. Li Wan shot to her feet the second the sentence finished, unable to contain her triumphant grin, marching over to my workstation to collect the printed client binders I'd already backed up across 3 separate private cloud drives weeks earlier. I guarantee full delivery on these accounts, she shouted toward Wang Kuen, striking an over-the-top heroic pose for the whole room to observe. Wang Kuen gestured toward the furthest desk in the entire office, a cramped corner tucked directly beside the staff restroom, perpetually shaded from natural sunlight, isolated from every other sales cubicle. Lin Wei, this will be your new workstation from today onward. Your daily responsibilities will consist of sorting archived historical documents and basic data entry. This was professional exile, a deliberate attempt to strip me of all status and purpose in front of every coworker. Every pair of eyes in the room locked onto my frame, a mix of pity, schadenfreude, and cold indifference swimming across their faces, all silently telegraphing the same unspoken message. This is what happens when you cross the boss. I said nothing in protest, simply lifted my small cardboard box of personal belongings and carried it slowly to the shadowed corner desk. A WeChat notification popped up seconds later from Zhang Hao. You all right? I sent back a single smiling emoji in response. How could I possibly be upset? This forced emotion handed me unlimited free time on the company's payroll, a fully paid break to finalize my next career move without sacrificing income. I logged on every morning exactly at 9, clocked out sharp at 5 without a single minute of unpaid overtime, and spent each shift sorting moldering old paperwork while updating my professional resume and submitting applications to top-tier industry competitors through my laptop. Recruiters flooded my phone with interview requests within days, including the largest rival firm to Wang Kuen's business, whose formal offer package exceeded every benefit Wang Kuen had ever promised me by a massive margin. During my off hours, I scheduled private team meetings with Client A and Client B at the city's most upscale tea house, an establishment Wang Kuen would never step foot in without cringing at the price list. We discussed golf, children's university admissions, emerging industry trends. Business contracts never entered our conversation once. Client A clapped me firmly on the shoulder mid-conversation. Shaolin, you're built for far bigger opportunities than this tiny, narrow-minded firm can offer. Don't let a small boss hold back your career growth. Client B nodded in full agreement beside him. Exactly. Wherever you choose to work next, our company's partnership will follow you without hesitation. We don't sign contracts with generic corporate brands. We sign contracts with you. Their words represented the highest validation I could ever receive for years of dedicated client care, the most powerful leverage I held against Wang Kuen's desperate attempts to retain revenue. Wang Kuen and Li Wan imagined stripping me of client access would erase my market value. They failed to understand they'd only discarded an irreplaceable network of personal trust neither of them could ever replicate. Their punitive demotion amounted to nothing more than an all-expenses-paid sabbatical for me to plan my comeback. Li Wan's fleeting victory dissolved within a single week. She charged at the stack of client folders like a starved hyena pouncing on fresh prey, convinced she'd effortlessly absorb all my high-value partnerships and claim the massive commissions for herself. Instead, she slammed headfirst into an unbreakable wall of loyalty built over years of my personal investment. She dialed every client number stored in the corporate CRM system one after another, only to hit dead ends or polite rejection every time. When she occasionally reached an assistant, they cut the call short the second they realized Lin Wei wasn't the person on the line. The identical reply echoed across every conversation. We only conduct project discussions directly with Miss Lin. Each refusal landed like a sharp slap across Li Wan's ego, erasing the pride her 200,000 renminbi bonus had given her months prior. After 7 straight days, without securing a single client follow-up meeting, Li Wan unraveled completely, growing irritable and explosive at the smallest office inconvenience, slamming folders and crumpling printed documents in front of the whole team. The glossy luxury aura her bonus had bought faded rapidly, replaced by frayed anxiety and frustration. She broke down in tears and stormed into Wang Kuen's office to lodge a formal complaint, and I could predict every fabricated accusation she'd spew before she even opened her mouth, claiming I'd sabotaged client relationships, poisoned their opinions of the company, and deliberately ruined her chances of landing deals. Sure enough, a wave of malicious gossip circulated through the office within hours of her meeting with Wang Kuen. Co-workers whispered that I was ungrateful, greedy, and willing to abandon the company that had given me a career to launch a competing business on stolen client resources. I overheard their whispered slander while refilling my water mug in the break room, and I couldn't suppress a quiet laugh at their transparent attempts to damage my reputation. Rumors only wield power if the target cares about others' opinions, and I'd long since stopped caring about the judgment of people who'd celebrated my unfair treatment months earlier. Without consistent new signed contracts to drive cash flow, the company's financial structure began to crumble rapidly. The finance department circulated an internal memo that all quarterly bonuses and performance commissions would be temporarily suspended indefinitely, sending shockwaves through the entire sales team. Resentment exploded across the office floor overnight. The same coworkers who'd mocked my 30,000 RMB bonus months prior now faced the prospect of receiving no extra compensation at all for their annual labor, their earlier bragging about luxury trips reduced to hollow fantasy. Li Wan lost every trace of her previous arrogance, walking with her head bowed, darting her gaze away whenever she crossed paths with me in the hallway. She'd slowly begun to grasp the bitter truth. The client accounts she'd fought so hard to seize weren't a lucrative prize. They were an impossible burden only I possessed the skill and trust to manage successfully. Word spread across the entire office building that Wang Kuen's business teetered on the brink of bankruptcy, whispered between staff from neighboring firms in elevators and stairwells. Company morale disintegrated entirely, every employee secretly updating their resumes and scouting new job openings behind their work screens. Wang Kuen took the drastic step of mortgaging his personal residential property just to scrape together enough capital to cover the month's base salaries, a temporary band-aid that did nothing to fix the root revenue collapse. He finally swallowed every ounce of his misplaced pride and walked across the open office floor to my isolated corner workstation one afternoon, plastering a groveling, subservient smile across his face that repelled me far more than his screaming fits ever had. Lin Wei, could we speak privately? He spoke in a hesitant, pleading tone I'd never once heard from him before. We returned to his private office, yet the power dynamic between us had flipped entirely. He personally brewed an expensive pot of high-grade Longjing tea, carefully setting the steaming ceramic cup in front of my seat with exaggerated deference. I fully acknowledge I mishandled the year-end bonus situation. My perspective was narrow and short-sighted, and I owe you a sincere apology. He stood upright and bowed his torso forward in a formal gesture of remorse. An outside observer might mistake the performance for genuine regret, yet I recognized it as nothing more than a desperate last-ditch tactic to save his failing enterprise. If you're willing to repair our client relationships and pull this company back from collapse, I'll award you a full 10% equity stake in the business. He tossed out his final bargaining chip without hesitation. A 10% share of a company on the verge of liquidation held zero tangible value, equivalent to a gambler handing over a worthless IOU after losing all their cash reserves. I didn't reject his offer outright this time. Instead, I wrapped my fingers around the warm teacup, gently blowing away floating tea leaves on the surface before lifting my gaze to his desperate, calculating face. What metric do you believe determines a person's professional value? I posed a question entirely disconnected from equity stakes or client contracts, catching him completely off guard. He paused, stunned by the unexpected line of inquiry, then quickly defaulted to his usual empty corporate rhetoric to regain control of the conversation. Value stems from loyalty, gratitude to the platform, and selfless dedication to collective company goals. I cut his hollow speech off mid-sentence with a quiet, definitive statement that silenced him instantly. It comes from respect. His polite, begging smile froze rigid on his features. I set the teacup back onto its saucer and stood upright from my chair. I can attempt to reconnect with the clients, but I cannot guarantee they'll agree to meet or resume partnerships. This process will require time. I dangled a thin thread of false hope in front of him intentionally. For a drowning man clinging to a stray piece of driftwood, the fleeting illusion of rescue paired with the drawn-out agony of inevitable defeat would be the harshest consequence of his greed and disrespect.